Okay, we're here at the National Postal Forum in Anaheim, and we're talking to a couple of experts about international, the stuff that happens outside the United States. My name is Jody Berenblatt with GrayHair Advisors, and with me is...
I'm Mary Law from WorldView, LLC.
Hi, I'm Jerry Conrad with APC Postal Logistics.
So what we want to talk to you about today is if I were a brand new company, or if I am a company that's been in business for a long time but really mostly focused on the United States, and I've decided that I need to branch out and talk to customers outside the United States, what do I do? And what do I do first? What do I do second? What do I do last? What do I got to keep in mind all the time? And what can I set up straight the first time and it'll go smoothly? Do you want to start us off, Mary, with where do we start?
Capturing the addresses is a good idea. And international addresses don't look like U.S. addresses. And they don't look like each other. Each country has their own address format, and they can be very, very different. They can take more lines and more characters per line. And capturing and storing those and being able to put them on a label or an envelope is very important.
Okay. And so if I've captured the address correctly, now I'm giving the address list to you at APC Logistics. If I've hired you, what is it that your firm will be doing for me?
Well, I was going to maybe just add to what Mary had said. I guess from a technical standpoint, the International Mail Manual sets forth the requirements for how the addresses are formatted.
Right.
It's section 122. And there's a couple basic things to remember. Which is the last line needs to have the country spelled out in all caps, and it must be in English.
Okay.
So yes.
And so that's one of the first things is you introduce customers to the IMM Section 122?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good that there is a reference document.
And so with regards to well, I work for PQW, which is a wholesale division of the USPS. We're a private company,
Yeah.
and it's a work share program that mailers can experience discounts for international mail. And what we do is we bag and tag and sort by country, and then we drop directly at what's called an ISC.
What does ISC mean?
USPS ISC. International, that's a good question. I'm not,
Sorting Center.
The acronym, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
International Sort Center, yeah.
Yeah.
I should know that.
That's okay.
There's only 5 in the United States.
Right.
In New York,
Jacksonville?
Miami,
Okay.
Chicago, San Francisco, and Los Angeles.
Oh.
There used to be one in Texas, but all that mail now goes up through Chicago. So, as a matter of fact, even if you don't use a PQW, all international mail exits the country at those points. Yes.
Okay. What do you find customers to be most concerned about right now? What are the issues that they're needing to ask people about?
Well, I think it depends on whether you're talking about mail or parcels. It seems like a lot of the questions, mail seems to be running smooth. The publication mail and direct mail, I think, the numbers are consistent in the last couple of years in terms of volume. It's not falling off as much as it had been.
Okay.
But on the parcel side, I think, is where the growth is and where you're seeing a lot of the questions. Questions come up with regards to, duty and tax, delivery issues, tracking, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do customers ask? Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, no, the one thing that I keep getting back to is customs forms and how to fill them out and what you need to put on the customs forms and where can I get help. And I can tell you that Jerry's firm can help you with the customs form.
Yeah, essentially the technology is such that the shipping label platforms that work with the e-commerce companies, that's all now integrated so that when they print the label, the CN22 automatically prints out with the description and the value. And
a description of the contents.
the contents,
Okay.
yeah.
And if I'm writing a letter, the value is?
Well, a letter, correspondence in general, doesn't need a customs form. What needs a customs form is merchandise. There are some differences in what, in common terms, would be a letter and merchandise, so you kind of have to take a closer look at it. But if you're sending an invoice or correspondence to somebody, you don't need a customs form.
That's good.
That's correct, and may I just add a little bit more to that? In the case where there's the printed matter is dutiable, meaning they may be selling, say, 100 copies to a newsstand, and there's a sales invoice for that.
Yeah.
At that point, it is dutiable as well. But for the most part, lightweight publication, it's replacement cost value, and there's no duty and tax collected. But the e-commerce world is where the duty and tax issues is coming from mostly.
As opposed to people that are doing printed matter don't need as much of those issues.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you need to provide on the customs form is the country of origin.
USA?
So, well, not necessarily. Because if you're doing a piece of clothing, even though it's here, and you've sold it as a U.S. merchandiser, if you source that in Mexico, country of origin is Mexico, not the United States.
Doesn't the U.S. part count at all?
No. No, when they say country of origin, they mean where was it produced.
Okay, so when you say customers need help and APC can help, is that help a combination of a representative talking somebody through it and an automated process to fill out the customs form, or are the forms still entirely hard copy?
The customs forms are no longer hard copy. If you take something to the USPS counter in a post office and you've got a custom form on it, the clerk at the USPS counter will type in all the information off the customs form. They all have to be submitted electronically. And there is a process, like Jerry said, with the label and all of that integrated that produces the customs form. It's a matter of putting the information in and then being able to put the labels out and the customs forms.
Yeah, and it's all data driven, and we're, as a PQW, we're actually required. We can't just drop dutiable items without having a summary manifest with what the contents are of every piece of merchandise that we're dropping, as well as the certificate of origin. Where was it made? But again, it's all data driven. The Department of Defense, Homeland Security changed the role that for people dropping in bulk, that we have to provide that. That was as of 2 years ago. I think it was January 23rd, either 2012 or 2013. And like I said, the software has really gone leaps and bounds. If somebody has merchandise posted on, eBay, Amazon, their own site, when the label prints out the orders, it pulls all the information from all those sites, and then it also pulls their certificate of origin, the country that it was, where it was made, and the value.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
And so we receive a data file.
Right.
And then we do our we do our country sort of all the parcels that we received that day, and then it's just when we scan the parcels in, all the data is just uploaded to our system.
So if I go back to that beginning part of the process, then if I'm selling stuff on eBay, Amazon, and my own site, at what point am I encountering some level of address validation in the software or in the automation? Is it there in your services?
Not on our side. we're receiving a printed label with the complete address, so we don't have any control on validation at that point. I mean, just the expertise of our warehouse guys might see something that does not have a city and a postal code. We might say, hey, customer, you may want to double check this address because it probably won't get delivered.
Right, and that's luck.
Correct.
Yeah.
Very few sites have any international address validation. So you're depending on the customer to enter the address correctly, which is why knowing what the address should look like is very important for international mailers. I'd also like to mention, just going back quickly to the customs, each country sets their own restrictions on what's allowed to come into the country. And the IMM that Jerry mentioned earlier, the USPS International Mail Manual, has a list, an index of every country with the restrictions.
Okay.
So you can find out ahead of time if there's going to be a problem.
Right.
And the electronic transfer of the information is frequently an early warning sign that there's going to be a problem. You know, you hear back a little sooner if you're going to be having trouble.
Okay. That leads us to the desire to have delivery confirmation, right? We think we got the address right. We're shipping this parcel we think is important.
Yeah.
And now the person on the other end says they didn't get it yet. How does that work?
Well, if you're sending it via, first-class international mail, or in the PQW world, there are two options: ISAL and IPA. Neither of those have delivery confirmation. And then, hop ahead. It used to be that then this, if you wanted delivery confirmation, you'd have to send it PMI or PME. That service is very expensive, and if you're sending low-value goods, you've now added, $45 to your shipping cost. So, in order to get delivery confirmation, the USPS came out with a solution, and it's called ePacket. ePacket is available to 27 countries,
okay,
which covers the main countries that you're going to send 80% of your
is that the
goods
27 countries that are part of the IPC?
I don't think so.
Corporation?
Not exactly.
Not exactly
There's
right.
An overlap.
But there's a lot of overlap between them.
Yes,
Okay.
and they're adding countries every month, it seems. There'll be more to that. So it really is a great service. It's intended for less than 4 pounds,
Okay.
items less than $400 in value that require delivery confirmation.
How does it work?
It works through, it's data-driven again, so you have to use a PQW, and then we sort and bag and tag and drop at the USPS ISC, International Sort Center. I got it down now.
Right.
The countries where it's available is more driven by their capabilities.
If they have the technology to confirm the delivery.
Yes.
And is that on the carrier
great point.
level?
Well, it is. It's going to be.
Address.
That's right. It's going to be. This delivery confirmation it's just a scan. It's not a signature. So it would be the carrier on the other end. So it's only as good as the participating country, as Mary said.
Mm-hmm.
And although the scan percentages are good, it's not 100%.
Okay.
So if you're going to somewhere like the UK or France or Germany, where you've got very dependable delivery, you've got
Stable countries.
great deal of, people follow the rules, they do what they're supposed to do.
Right.
You've got great ideas going on. But, look at what would happen if you were doing that here, and you see about the same kinds of problems.
Okay. So, I guess, is there any other top, issue that a customer would care about today? Or should we move into the talk about what customers ought to expect in the near future?
Well, I think the bottom line is the customers, they want to increase sales. And, you know, I think a lot of them, when they started to sell internationally, would only have, say, the courier company, the courier options available. And what you would have is a lot of abandoned cart once they saw how much it cost to ship.
Sure.
So as they've added these postal options to their cart, upon checkout, lowering the cost for international, they've really increased orders. And you know, when it's a lower value good, do you really need delivery confirmation? You know, you're not going to get the sale anyway if you don't.
Okay.
I mean, we publish books, reference books for businesses. So it's not a consumer level, but we can't afford the courier rates if we're going to be a reasonable cost of the books. So we use the USPS services and we use the PQWs.
Mm-hmm.
It lets the delivery costs internationally be affordable for a small to medium business with a lower cost item.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the small, medium business is, you know, the growth of America.
Right.
That may be true outside America as well. So I guess making it easy for the small and medium-sized business is really important for them to be able to grow. I myself only know American. I don't know how many languages you speak, but I imagine if I were starting a new business today, I would need, and I wanted to go global, I would need to be able to accommodate multilingual needs. And do people ask you about that for a recommendation?
They don't ask me. I barely know English, but a little bit of French. But I think essentially, though, we're dealing with U.S. companies only selling outbound. Once they open up certain countries to have access to their cart, English being the universal language, I don't think that necessarily it would be an advantage in certain countries, perhaps, especially in Japan. But I think overall, I know plenty that are selling a lot of international and only know English. So
I would agree with that. English has become the common language. A lot more people can read it. They can speak it well. What we do get from international customers are emails in other languages.
Oh, okay.
yes, that's a great point. That happens a lot.
I don't get phone calls. I get emails in French or German or Italian or Portuguese, and no, I don't speak or read all those languages. But there are some great online translation tools that you can at least get a good sense of what they're asking. And if you need something finer than that, there are a number of services that will provide translation and mediation of answers to emails, answering phones within the appropriate business hours for the various countries.
And in the right language for that.
Yeah, and I think that as e-commerce companies have expanded their customer service, I think that I'm not as familiar with this side of the business, but I can imagine that it's only going to help them if they have, say, one of the bigger countries is France, and somebody from their customer service can speak French. It's only going to be an advantage.
Sure, I would expect that to be true.
Yeah.
So I wondered about Cuba. Looks like the USPS is negotiating with Cuba for the possibility of being able to deliver mail directly. My understanding is that the citizens of Cuba are sort of anxious to enjoy the pleasures of the first world buying options. What are you forecasting for the possibility here?
I forecast that I look forward to maybe taking a vacation in Cuba. I'm not necessarily, I'm not sure about the whole mail side yet. I haven't heard anything from the USPS yet about gaining access to that.
There are some goods that can now be shipped to Cuba as of right now today.
Oh.
But there are limits on what they are. And I presume that, again, going back to the USPS International Mail Manual, the IMM, that if you went to Cuba, they would give you the possibilities and restrictions. For the future, I'm sure that they're so close that there's going to be a lot, and there are so many Cuban Americans and others that speak Spanish that there's going to be a lot of trade back and forth between Cuba and the United
I've heard
States.
a lot of folks asking for Cuban cigars. They want to get them directly. What's another big country that's growing in the global commerce space? Where are you seeing the growth and the demand?
Well, that's a good question. I know Brazil has been growing a lot, and India. Brazil, of course, it seems that there's usually a lot of snags when it comes to duty and tax. The duty and tax is very high into Brazil. As far as other countries, you know, the top 5, of course, are Canada, Australia, UK, France, and Germany, and then Japan, and a couple others come right after that. So, but yeah, India and Brazil, I think, are probably the two growing at the highest percentage rate.
Okay. What would you give us as tips for folks looking into the near future? What are the issues that we need to think about?
Near future, the things we need to think about. Things are not going to get simpler quickly. They're going to stay about the same as they are now for, I'd say, at least the next 5 or 7 years. It's not going to get more simplified.
Why?
People are very tied to their own laws,
Yeah.
their own way of doing things, and each country has to agree to change how international commerce works. I don't think that you're going to get enough agreement to actually make it change quickly. I think also that if you're going to see simplification, it's going to be in the customs and customs brokerage areas, because that's the area that's restricting a lot of trade, and trade is to everybody's advantage. So I think that if you're going to see simplification, you may see some simplification in that particular space, which would be very good. The high taxes in Brazil.
Yeah, I would agree with Mary on that. Some of the biggest barriers are related to the duties and tax. If there was a way to streamline that, come to an agreement on universal percentages, perhaps, but it's so political, it could be a long way down the road. Regardless, the e-commerce numbers are going to continue to grow exponentially, even with those problems.
Canada, our biggest trade partner, has a very low amount before they apply taxes. It's only $20 or $25 Canadian. Anything over that is tax.
Right.
That's extremely low.
Right.
The UK, it's around 200 or 250 before they start taxing it. You know, so that Canadian number, 25 Canadian dollars, isn't much. But they're still our biggest trading partner. So people do get around it. People deal with it. You know, it's a problem, but not a restriction.
Well, it wouldn't be a problem if I knew that's how much it would cost before I ordered it, right? I mean, I know if I buy something in New York, there's a tax.
Yep.
New York City, it's not inexpensive. I can choose to go elsewhere to purchase it, but for convenience, I would want to get it local.
Everybody being educated and aware helps, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, repeat buyers, of course, they know what to expect.
Right.
Are you seeing a lot of growth in the repeat or a lot of growth in the new folks coming in? Because I think we're hearing about both from the Postal Service, right? There's folks that are growing their businesses, and then there's new people coming into the space.
Yeah, I would say both. When you say, you mean new e-commerce companies or new customers
New
buying
customers
from?
for you.
New customers for us, absolutely. Feels like the early 90s.
Yeah.
And, comparing that to international mail of the growth curve there, it's probably even more than that in terms of new clients.
A lot of the new clients, have they been in business a while, or are they new businesses?
A lot of them are new businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are you experiencing, Mary?
A lot of them are either new businesses or expanding into international for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
They're extant U.S. businesses that have said, all this e-commerce stuff looks interesting. Let's see what happens. And they're venturing out of the country, which I think is a good thing for everybody.
Sure.
Yes. And then you have, mail houses that in the past may have had a smaller pick and pack operation are now, growing that part of their business and taking on when these small e-commerce companies outgrow their garage and they need a professional way to do it, they'll go to a 3PL or a large mail house facility who has a pick pack operation.
And then those facilities will often partner with your company to get the parcels outside the country, right?
Correct. Yeah.
What about returns? Are returns another bumpy road back to the shipper?
It's a pain point. Mary, you want to comment on that?
The problem with returns is, again, it's not under the control of USPS or the U.S. government. You have to follow the local law in the other country, and the cost of returning the good frequently can't be completely prepaid. Plus, in some countries there's an export tax. The U.S. has no export taxes. It's in our Constitution. There are none. Other countries do have export taxes. You may be subject to that. Then you're subject to U.S. customs coming into the country.
That'll take time, but it doesn't cost money, does it?
It shouldn't as a returned good.
Okay.
If you've got used goods coming back into the country, it's a whole nother issue, and we find that in many cases, international mailers recycle locally in the destination country, or goods are repurposed or donated to charity, depending on what they are, and the value of the goods, of course.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I think, two parts, really. You have undeliverables, and parcels that are undeliverable that are sent via, say, IPA postal service, those are sent back free of charge, and you get them back. But if somebody they got a pair of shoes and they don't fit, and they want to return it, certainly the e-commerce company is not including a free return label in that package for a foreign country because it's cost prohibitive.
Okay.
So it's a pain point. A lot of the e-commerce companies have had success into Canada because it's a lot closer in working out a single point of entry for returns and then shipping them back in bulk. So they've been able to work around that.
That's helpful. I mean, returns are a challenge and becoming a significant volume, both domestically and internationally, it seems, as consumers change the way they consume. I'll order 5 of these and I'll plan to return 3.
Right.
And I guess that's more in the clothes side, but I don't know if it's true of the tech side also. Might be, for early adopters trying new technology, they might want to try a myriad of things and then just return some of it.
Yeah.
So if you had a magic wand, what would you like to see happen in the next, short period of time to make it easier to do business across the globe?
Jerry said it. I make all the customs be equal around the world. Everybody has the same rules rather than the country by country, because following the country by country rules is hugely time consuming. Now, for a new entrant into that market, they're not following every country in the world. They're only following the countries they've decided to go into or the countries that are ordering from them, and they can limit that on their website in ways that are non-insulting and non-intrusive to the buyers.
Okay.
They can choose to go, for example, into these 10 countries, and those are the only 10 countries they list.
Right.
There are ways to handle that, but for those of us who deal with international globally as consultants or service providers, we'd like to see it be the same rules everywhere.
Yeah. I don't think I could add to that. You said it so well on the customs side. I guess if I had a wish list, it would be to expand the e-packet service beyond the 27 countries and also expand it beyond 4-pound max.
Oh, good point.
But again, that's going to, so everything depends on the participating country's ability to be able to scan and get the information back to the USPS.
Yeah, I'm assuming that the other postal operators want to be able to support that sort of thing. It's just
Absolutely.
a matter of whether or not their infrastructure is in position to do so.
That's
and
correct.
And how much money they have to invest to upgrade those systems.
Yes.
Now, would some of those requirements happen because of the customs requirements, so that they'd have to upgrade the technology anyway?
I'm not sure. I think that, I'm not sure on that end, actually.
Yeah, it might be two separate modules.
Yeah.
Customs tends to be an entirely separate government department from the Post, and the World Customs Organization has agreed to requirements for electronic transfer of information. The Posts have not done so. And it takes a majority vote of all the member countries. And for the UPU, which does postal, that's 192 countries. I think WCO is 188, 189 countries. Yes, it's not the same number. I don't do international organizations incredibly well. But it's different groups are setting the rules.
Okay. As closing remarks go, is there anything you'd like to share with folks that might be watching this video before you go off and enjoy the rest of the National Postal Forum?
Wow. If you're looking to expand your business, I'm sure that you've considered opening up the international market, and be sure to find a good resource to answer your questions. And certainly a lot of those people are here. And so be sure to attend the NPF next year. I'm not sure where the next one is.
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, but it's in Nashville.
Nashville.
So come to Nashville. You're going to find great resources for answering those questions. It'll make your life a lot easier.
Okay. You, Mary?
Yes, I agree with that. I'd also say that for all the problems, doing international is fun.
Yeah.
You meet a lot of great people. You do a lot of things that you never thought you would be able to do, and you find out how expansive you can be. So it's actually an enjoyable thing to do. Wouldn't you agree?
I've been involved for 26 years now, so I guess I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
I always thought it was fun to recognize the world and the way the different interactions happen. So I want to thank you for spending time with us today and sharing your insight and your experience with our viewers, and we hope to do this again sometime.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.